Welcome back to It Tastes Like Burning. This is Matt.
This is Jesse.
And if you guys ever have any questions, concerns, comments, theories, conjectures, interjections, or rejections, let us know about it. You reach us at ittasteslikeburningcast@gmail.com, and you can also catch us on Twitter at
ITLBCast.
And you can catch us at Reddit on the same handle.
Yep.
Today, we have our regular victim back with us, Aiden. How you doing, Aiden?
Good. How are y'all?
Fantabulous. So, we're swinging wildly on this one, and I figured we have really probably 10 things we could talk about. Just a small preview. We bought a new truck. Not the city, not the county. We did. That was a long and interesting process. But I think the thing I kind of want to talk about, and a reoccurring theme that I've been seeing a lot of on glancing at Reddit, is just different types of departments and how we managed to kind of hold things together through training. And Jesse and Aiden both are very instrumental in our training, and I like the direction they're going with the training. So without ado, I'm going to turn it over to Jesse and just kind of talk about what's your grand plans this year for training as a whole with the organization.
So with this and any year, it's always kind of stepping it up one level from the last year, right? So we had this phenomenal year last year where we set records in our organization with our recruit academy. I think our average member had right around 70 hours, training hours per member, which you compute that out. That's more than any agency's ever going to want for CE. I mean, that's huge. We had members that had 170, 180 hours of training hours, and that's something that's really impressive. So now, how do you top that? So we're gonna work on some things. Hopefully, grow that rookie school, that recruit academy some. We're working on some training with the entire county and getting the rest of the departments in our county involved in a training program that's group and allows for some of those bigger exercises and growth that way, as well as our interdepartmental stuff that we do on a monthly basis for just our members. And through all that, it's about bringing those programs up to par and validating those so that they hold the weight that they deserve to hold, so that they're recognized by the important agencies that need to recognize them, and more importantly, just passing knowledge. It's truly about sharing the knowledge and growing the knowledge, and we can do that through outside sources and sharing ideas.
Yeah, there's really for the coming year, there's four pillars that I look at that training will be spanning this year. So we have the physical department training, and the relatively new member to us, but very long member in the fire service. He's just recently joined us, and he's retired from his career department. Long career at a large career department, and when he approached us, he's all about training, and I see him being like the perfect shoe-in for helping with the physical department trainings on that monthly dedicated training night. And then you have the department and countywide training. So there's a second pillar. And again, if you always hold to my mindset that training is the heartstrings of the organization and it's always going to control everything and make everything all better, that logic would also tie into any organization that is going to be theoretically participating with us. I always like to describe your department's only as strong as your weakest mutual aid. And the more you build the departments around you, just the stronger you're going to be on scene. And then bouncing from there, we have our, we'll call it our state regulated guided training. And we've had problems in the state of Texas for a long time in getting that sorted and tackled. And uh, the system's finally being brought up and acknowledged by the state, and for lack of better words, fixed. And so we've got a ton of people to push through the certification side, and that's just busy work and time, but it still takes someone dedicated for that. And then the last one is our we'll call it our training district recognized by the state. It had the power of a carrot for about the last 15 years. And we've just short of doing a hostile takeover of our district board, we did a hostile takeover of our district board. And one of our members is the president on that board. And hell or high water, we're going to get what we want out of that board this year in that region, or we're going to switch to a different region. And it's the same thing. It's not necessarily our direct mutual aid, but these are departments we work with. So there needs to be a commonality in training between us and them too. And that can be addressed through area schools. So you have these four pillars or a four-ring circus tent, and I'll be somewhere back in behind it poking the bear in the cage.
Or your chair and buggy whip.
But yeah, there's a ton of stuff this year that is, I would argue, central, directly tied to, in case of, and in conjunction with, and it is all going to be training related. And I just saw our rescue captain walk in and realized that he's got grand plans this year too. And realistically, that's the fifth one. So now it's a fire-ring circus. Yeah. We've got two bears. It's going to be, for us, it's going to be all things training. And it's not just for our department, and it's not just for our specialized teams, and it's not just for our county. It's a regional and district thing. And then sometime in the summer, it's going to become a state thing.
You know, I've seen a lot of departments in the state and around the country, and they've all gone to this online model of training, and I'm seeing the effects of that as a negative way. Like they're losing their center and their structure. They're losing their cohesive team part of it. Would you care to comment on how you see that and what?
Well, I look at it. It has its place. So I think of our academy. You know, we have an online portion of our academy where we do the book stuff. And the reason we do the book stuff is so that we're not having to do the classroom stuff when we're physically meeting with each other at the station. And what we're doing is we're doing the skills. So in this particular case, the two things complement each other.
Right.
And there's other things like, you know, let's say NIMS 1, 2, 7, 8. You know, that's perfect for online. There's the traffic safety classes, courage to be home, or courage to be safe. Everybody comes home. Those are perfect for online. But if you're doing a ladders class online and that's it, and you're doing hose loads and hose stretches and fire tactics online, and there's no sandbox, there's no burn house, there's no, even a round table discussion happening at the station where there's some interaction, there's you're losing about 5 things. So you not only are you losing the hands-on skills part of it, not only are you losing the direct face-to-face just communication factor, but you're losing the ability for someone to ask a stupid question. You're losing the ability of them to physically build familiarity with your apparatus. I mean, it's really a catastrophic impact if you go to an online-only training program. I bet you within as short as a quarter, guaranteed 6 months, you would see some pretty serious negative impact off of that.
Yeah, I see them going down the hole at that point, in that 3 to 6 month range. What about you, Aiden? What do you think about it?
Well, I'm kind of on the same boat with you guys. I think a lot of what training has to, offer, and a lot of the benefits of training have to do with just building a team. And you can't really build a team if you tell somebody to, go complete this, this workbook, and that's your training for tonight. There's no human interaction in that, so you can't interact with each other. You don't get to know the guys on your department. You don't get to interact with anybody at that point. So, you're working solo at that point, and that's, I think, to me, that defeats the whole purpose of training, is to not only just build a camaraderie, but build and enhance your skills with your other team members. Because at that point, you're just excluding each other from, any activities that you're going to eventually get on scene and have to work with each other, and you're not going to know how because you've never interacted with this person outside of the department, or even at trainings, you don't interact with each other, so you don't know how to work with each other and what their limits are, and on and on and on.
I think the catastrophic negative impacts that something like that for someone brand new joining a department is they don't even realize like why they're struggling getting active and finding their niche and just getting part of the team. If you have no way for people to interact, that's not going to work.
Right.
It's just not. And there was a really, really good Reddit post about asking about the volunteer fire departments dying, and I never chimed into it because, frankly, it was already a really hot post, and I was going to be just commenting too late to be at the bottom. And I know that sounds stupid, but we're trying to promote the podcast. I gotta catch those
Yeah.
early, and it was a good post. There was hundreds
There's
of
a lot of good
replies,
comments in that.
and you found that about 98% of the replies basically said, "Yep, volunteerism's dying. No one gets paid for anything. It's too hard. There's too much. No one cares." And that's a general summary of about 95, 98% of the comments. And then if you cherry pick through there, you'd find the occasional comment in there. And, it'd be individual, small department, Iowa. They realized they had a problem and they tackled it. And it's like, man, that's where it's at. And if you look at the common theme between all of them, the handful of comments that were saying we realized we had a problem, we did stuff about it, versus everyone else dying the death of 10,000 paper cuts, there was a universal theme in those threads. One set trained and fixed their department through training, and the other department still suffers.
Right.
I mean, it really was that cut
Well,
and dry.
it boils down to you either have a group of people functioning as a whole, or you have a whole bunch of individuals functioning the best they can with what they barely got taught, right? And so individually, none of us are capable of saving the day. I would just venture to say that that's not going to happen. But collectively, as a group working together, we can pretty much accomplish anything we want, and whatever the challenge is. And that's where you're pushing that when you make that into an online not group deal, is you're making it a group of individuals that are individually working for a common goal instead of a group of members commonly working for a common goal. And that's the difference. Your team truly is as good as the weakest link. And how do you know where your weakest link stands if you don't train together and interact in a manner to where you can see where so and so's fallen in the skill level, and then help bring that person up.
Right.
It's not a carte blanche across the board. This is what we train on, and everybody's at that level, because folks, there's people that just don't get it the first time. There's people that don't get it the 10th time, and it's our job to make sure that we get it to them in a way that they can understand it, even if it's in a one-on-one event like that.
And one of the luxuries of volunteer, to kind of add to that, is that not everyone has to do everything.
Right.
You have the ability to dedicate people to certain positions, and it's really nice to be able to sit there and have a discussion with someone and realize that they just don't like something. Okay, and again, whatever, they're afraid of heights. It doesn't matter what it is. They don't like medicals. They only like medical. Whatever. But reinforce that into a person. Let them know you don't have to do that. That's perfectly fine. It's okay to focus on this and dump the time, energy, and effort and the resources into that niche. It's perfectly fine to do that. And this one size cuts all. I mean, yeah, career departments have to do it because at the end of the day, they're operating at minimum staffing. People don't ever really consider that. Fire departments intentionally don't have so many people sitting around. City Hall doesn't appreciate that. So you got to have just the perfect number for safety and for efficiency, not luxury and not ease. That's not how it works.
Well, and even in the career side, that group training, and I had a conversation with my nephew about it, and his department not doing any training other than what they were doing for their CEs online, and the negative effects that were happening in that career department because of it. They were losing skills just because of not practicing and not keeping competency on it. And another good, that team environment just reduces drama at the firehouse, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. No, it makes your department exponentially stronger if you actually have a team. And it doesn't mean that they all do a reenactment of Wizard of Oz
Right.
and lock elbows and, sing Kumbaya down the yellow brick road. But when they're on scene, which is where it matters, magically it works.
Yeah.
It just does. And that is by far like the single most important factor in all of this is you have got to be able to figure out how when people are on scene, you don't have 37 ideas or 5. You have a quick discussion and then everyone's off going and doing their job. And you can know in confidence that with the assigned task that it'll be done. And again, there's no way to know that unless you train because you have to know the level that they're operating at. There's no way to know that. And that's not once a year.
So,
Just isn't.
yeah, and this ties in with something that I saw on Twitter this morning, and I commented on it. There's the Modern Volunteer Fire Service Twitter handle, at modern_fire. And they're a consulting group that consults to volunteer fire departments on probably a myriad of issues. They're up in the north. They're kind of that northern Midwestern kind of deal. I can't remember exactly where they are. They may be northeast. But they're definitely northern. But they said bylaws written in 1970 are the hindrance of growth for volunteer fire service in 2023.
Period.
And we see that. And,
Yeah.
You see that in a lot of departments in a lot of our area and other areas where it's Matt's old saying of what progress impeded by 100 years of tradition or whatever he says. And that happens all the time. And you see that with training, and you see it not just in the bylaws, but you see it in training. And, when all we've done is played dominoes for training for the last 75 years. I mean, we're real good at dominoes, but we suck at firefighting, right?
Yeah, it is just asinine to be. Don't get me wrong. I mean, the problem is that what about our history? What about your tradition? What about your organization? It's meaningless if you continue to cause your organization to collapse day by day. You can figure out how to have a modern fire department that does have work ethic, acknowledges your history and tradition, and be successful. Those are very capable things. And it's just going to require for lack of better words, a consensus and leadership. It's going to have to be someone that comes forward and says, okay, this sucks. It's not working. It's pretty obvious it's not working. You all acknowledge it's not working. We have to change. Okay. And again, I don't know what that change is for your organization. Could be a change in management, could be a change in articles, bylaws, constitution, whatever. Could be a different set of SOPs. I don't know. It might be just simply how many of you can actually operate a chainsaw? You know, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Another one of my favorite quotes is, "How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time." I can very easily say that it's taken me 3 years as chief to be able to be going into the 4th year and actually legitimately be in the position to go out there and try some of the cool crap that's beyond just running the organization. But it took 4 years of getting the membership on page, getting articles and bylaws updated, getting new SOPs and SOGs, getting on the same page with the departments around you, getting your officers on the same page. And because it's one thing to have the idea, it's another thing to just try it, and it's another thing when the department actually comes to you and says, "We're ready."
Well, and arguably, this was a strong department before you were chief.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, very, very, very strong.
Yeah, so it was just taking something that was already good and making it better, and not resting on the laurels of we're already pretty good, right?
Yeah.
And I think that happens a lot with departments, that they beat their chest that they're good, and then they beat it so long that they don't realize that the world passed them, and their town passed them, and everything's up ahead of them, and they don't realize that they've let all that stuff pass them by. It all boils back to the training.
Right. Period. It just, I mean, we have such an opportunity right now for us. And I realize that, a lot of people don't necessarily know where we're at and truly how we operate and on and on. But we're at a point where we can step into a regional and district level, belly up to the table, people listen, at a state level. We have, and this is by no means my doing. This is Jesse, this is Aiden. There's high and low, big names, small names. And the fact of the matter is that there's so many people that have contributed in so many different ways for that to happen. And my point is that it's not the chief. It's not. It's the membership, and they want to progress. They want to improve. How did we get to that point? That's probably a 14-hour discussion that's half conjecture.
Yeah.
We've had really strong chiefs in the history. Again, we've been around since the early 1900s. We've had really strong chiefs. We've had some weaker chiefs over time. But the organization as a whole, over the decades, pass into century, all it's done is progress and gotten stronger. Good and bad management, hard and easy times. And it's just something that the organization itself has been able to maintain as over time, is pride in the community, a true willing to help, and embracing the concept of volunteering. So those are all really good things. And I would say the common link over all of that time is training. I mean, you can talk to some of our ultra old members, guys that were here in the 50s, and yes, they're still alive, a couple of them, and they trained in the 50s. No one did that at that time.
Yeah.
And they trained in the 50s. So like I said, it's not something I did. This has been a bedrock thing in the organization. Even in the weaker years where training was maybe laxing a little bit, they were still training.
Right.
And it is. I mean, I'll never be able to point to one thing in this organization and not be able to say it's not because of training. Because it is. It just, top to bottom, again, training's the core, it's the heartstrings. It is everything. Training is what gives you good officers. Training is what gives you competent people on scene. It's just keep picking. It's always training. The answer is training. If you're on a department that's struggling, I assure you, it's training.
So earlier you mentioned this new truck that we got, and that's been a pretty fast and furious process to get that truck in here. And I think we should just kind of touch on that. Like, we managed to find, secure, get under contract, get financing, and take delivery of a fire apparatus tanker, a commercially manufactured tanker, in about 3.5 months, 3 months.
Yeah, it really was a whirlwind. The whole thing started in October, and we took delivery of the truck in literally December 29th or 30th, something like that.
Right at the end of December. So literally couple months, which
Pretty
is
quick.
In today's world, that is unheard of.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at Pierce and E1 and some of those guys, and they're given lead times of 2 and 3 years out on new apparatus, and we managed to slide in there and found a manufacturer, and I mean, we'll tell you, it's Fouts Brothers, and got what we were looking for, and it was just a happenstance that they happened to have this thing coming into production, and it be what we wanted, and we're able to jump on it like that. But it's a different world. Like, if you're sitting there with a truck that's about to die, you should have been thinking about that 3 years ago and working on it at this point.
I truly feel sorry for any organization that has financially struggled. Boy, if you've been dragging your feet on acquiring a new apparatus we'll say, well, really it's February 23rd or 24th of 22. Then, after the flare up in Ukraine and then the supply and demand stuff hit, let me tell you, you're in for a world of hurt. And what I recommend you do is you need to kind of value what you want, what's going to actually satisfy the job, and how much you're willing to pay. For us, it was kind of a no-brainer thing because we were able to lock in the price of what I consider an exceptional cabin chassis, and it's not a 10-year truck. It's not a 20-year truck. I look at it as a 25 to 30-year a piece apparatus, and it's just bomb-proof from my perspective. Obviously, check back in 25 or 30 years, and we'll see how that little statement holds up.
Yeah.
But
I won't be here.
Yeah, I hope I'm dead, too. But yeah, let me tell you, the lending environment's changed. The ability to secure apparatus and be able to secure a delivery date has changed. Your ability to equip the truck and put tools and equipment in on that truck is delayed. I mean, okay, that's awesome. You ordered a truck. Did you realize it took almost a year to get hose right now? When did you make your hose order? The shortest hose delivery that I've heard of in the last 18 months is 6 months. Everyone else is 8 to 12 months out. That's hose. Well, you kind of need that.
Yeah, or buckets.
Yeah, maybe you have some on a rack, hopefully.
Yeah.
Air packs are colossal. Everything. Radios. It doesn't matter. So, okay, awesome. You set all this time, energy, effort aside for the apparatus. What about the tools? Cost of diesel. On and on. Insurance. Yeah, it's been an eye-opening experience from my perspective. I'm very familiar with loans and how to apply for them and how to get them, but not from a volunteer fire department perspective. So I had my teeth kicked in for about 45 days straight on that process. And there was a moment there where it's like, this is not good. I am legitimately in trouble. Then the vendor contacted me and told me they'd painted the truck.
Yeah.
That was
Awesome.
probably the most depressing, awesome feeling I've ever had, because it was like, this is awesome, but I'm in deep trouble. We're going to pay for a paint job.
2 of them.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty staggering. Yeah, I mean, and like I said, we could have a whole podcast on that, and then the concepts on how to help you offset the cost of owning the truck too, and that in itself is its own podcast. But again, the way we bought this truck wasn't the city that bought it for us. It wasn't the county that bought it. It was us, and that makes it unique. That makes it real unique. That was the challenge in the lending. That was you had to find a bank that was community centered, and I do mean community centered.
Yeah.
You better search far and wide for that. And if for whatever reason in the world you're in Texas and you need a heads up and you're in a predicament like this, literally reach out to us. I can point you in the direction of who you need to reach.
So, Aiden, you got any goals for the coming year?
Yeah, I mean, I just gotta say, I learned a lot from the past year. Uh, you know, Matt and Jesse kind of had to sit down with me and, for the lack of better words, teach me some critical organizational skills. And I picked up a lot from that, and picked up a lot from the students, throughout the class. And I kind of learned that if you just set the entire, environment as a learning environment rather than here's what you're going to do, and I'm going to tell you to do this, and you better do it, otherwise you're wrong. Uh, it reaps a lot of benefit out of it. And, if you give your students a little bit of a voice, and, we've, you know, every now and then we'd have a student come up and say, hey, you know what, I was looking at this, and I don't know if this is right or wrong. Can we just talk about it? And instead of just going and shutting them down and being like, no, well, you're just a student, and I'm the instructor, and you're going to do what I'm going to tell you. And, if you give them the opportunity to challenge that and, have their own voice, and their confidence is going to go way up. And not only that, but then your students are going to actually feel like they have a part in the class. And so that was probably one of the most important things that I learned, was to be open to that, and be open to letting the students have a voice and have an opinion in the class, because it really does matter, and it goes a lot further than you think.
Yeah, trying to get a training program established. I can understand coming out with a schedule and saying, "Hey, it's going to be this way," and it's going to be not structured is not the right word. Rigid.
Right.
It is this. We're doing it at this time. This is how we're going to do it. And it's to help truly establish those fundamental skills and everything across the organization as needed. But as time progresses, flexibility is a good thing, and being able to accommodate your class as a whole is one, they appreciate it, but two, it's how a fire scene works. There's going to be things that you go in there with a full game plan of it's going to be A, B, C, D, and it turns out that it's 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not. You got to have some flexibility and get people thinking in that mindset during training to encounter, hey, things can change. There can be a shift here, and on, and take a recommendation and move them that way.
As far as goals go, I think I would like to.
Stop sniffing glue.
Well, that's one of them, but I don't know if I'll accomplish that this year.
Don't quit yet.
But I think we have a lot of momentum carrying over from the previous year, and I'd kind of like to see some of that, help us spring forward into the new year, and kind of help take some of the techniques that we've learned just in our rookie academy and use them in our department trainings, and kind of help some of the other surrounding departments around us that may not, like Jesse said, have day-to-day or monthly trainings like we do, and may not have the opportunity to meet up and actually train in person. And I think that's a pretty big goal. And I think another goal of mine is to kind of start, getting some of my other colleagues and people that have shown some interest, in doing, kind of following up with the training, getting them in there and kind of showing them like, hey, this is, what we do. If you have any questions, please come to us, and just kind of getting them ready to take a role, because I know there's a lot of people that we have on the department that have actually stepped up in the last year and expressed a lot of interest in helping us out with the training. And I mean, I think it'd be a really kick in my butt to turn any of that away. So
And the one thing I'm going to add to that is that from a chief training captain perspective, turn it over. You can't have the indentured servants.
right,
No.
right,
Don't get me wrong. You're going to make sure they're ready to go, but when they're ready, turn it loose. It's
Right.
okay for you to not be in charge and control of something,
right,
because that's the last phase of actual learning. If they have a real question, they'll come to you. Outside of that, let the duck swim. let it go. And be ready to see the department, go in that direction. And if you're willing to fully embrace that ideology, like, oh, okay, so we started this from the ground up, took a lot of time, energy, and effort. People recognized it. They started to help me. Now they're interested. They're willing. Let's be honest, guys. That's why they're helping you. They eventually plan on making it their monkey.
right,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you need to feed them a peanut here
right.
and give it to them. That allows you to go out and conquer divide somewhere else if needed.
Well, and you can't move up until somebody else can do your job, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And that way that if you do get run over by a clown bus, it's in good hands. It's going to be taken care of. It's not going to just automatically default and revert right back to the Stone Age. You've already infected the department with your progressive ideology.
And it makes me think back to when I first started doing it, and I mean, didn't have a clue of where to even start. And somebody, came along and was like, "Let me show you," and let me learn with them. And that was a pretty cool thing to see and be a part of.
Well,
Yeah.
awesome.
It's again, it's always going to come back to training. Everything. Always has, always will.
Yep. Well, I think we ought to kind of wrap it and call it short for this time and get this puppy out on the internet. And
Works for me.
you got anything else you want to add? Take away?
No,
You can't take it away now. It's
Yeah.
recorded.
no. I think it was a pretty good discussion, and I'm excited to see what the new year brings. So
Well, whatever it is, it's gonna cause hate and discontent somewhere. I can't wait for it.
And it's completely unknown at this point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're like Star Trek.
I did
Into
shake
the void.
I shake the magic 8 ball every now and then, and it just tells me put me down, stupid. So
My kid doesn't appreciate that. Just keep screaming at me.
yeah.
All
Well,
right. That works for me.
yeah.
All right. Again, if you ever have anything for us, reach out to us. And I always forget to say this at the beginning. If you're still listening, we'd appreciate it if you ever had the opportunity to give us a review or a question. That'd be
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, we enjoy the questions and diving off into, recommended topics and whatnot. And I think I'll be reaching out to those guys at that consulting group, see if they might be interested in doing a podcast
Yeah, that'd be a
somewhere
good,
down the road.
really good group to have in.
Yep. So,
Other than that, appreciate it. Have a good evening.
goodbye.